Welcome, welcome to whatever this is. I don't know what I'm doing, guys. Like, I haven't done this in 2 years. It's been a long time since I actually did an upload, but I felt the need to come back to the essence of why I even started this YouTube channel in the first place. And I said I was going to upload. So the main reason this thing even exists is for me to talk to myself. Nothing more, nothing less. It's just me to externalize the thoughts I have in my head, the dialogues that go in my head, and maybe just put them out there. I know it's narcissistic, like why are you putting your thoughts out there? Nobody has asked for them. And in a world where everybody's opinionated, I'm not helping the situation. I'm good. I'm just like, you know what? Me too. There it is. Have my opinion too. So it's a very nonsensical channel if you're new. There's zero value here. You have you can do better stuff with your time. You can do better stuff with the time. But I hope to come back and I hope to do this more often. That's what I said the last time and the last time before that. I hope to do this more consistently. So I'm probably going to do movies. I'm probably going to do a bit of commentary, even though I hate social commentary. Movies, books, and everything. So I'm probably just going to squeeze in social commentary through books and through movies. And today it's a movie I've been rewatching. The Devil Wears Prada. I first watched this movie probably when I was 18. And just finished my form five, and I was watching this movie, and I was like, damn, that's a very deep movie. And looking at the movie through the eyes of an 18-year-old, I was like, damn. So this young lady, Andy. So in the picture, Andy is the one with two men behind her. I don't know if it's to the left. All right, but the one with two men behind her, not the middle one. Andy, Ivy League graduate, studied all this amazing. I think she studied law. Finds herself working for a fashion magazine, and this fashion magazine has an editor, the woman in the middle, Miranda Presley, who's somewhat tyrannical in her ways, quite cold. She's a powerful woman. She looks at people in the building, and people just wanna collapse themselves. She holds that power over everybody. It's like sometimes she just demands the moon and people around her work on getting the moon for her. Now, spoiler alert. Andy goes through phases where she's new to the company, does not know what's going on. She comes up, she's not a really fashionable person because the company's a runway. It's a fashion magazine. Everybody has fashion. She gets critiqued for her fashion. Like, what are you wearing? What do you think that up? She feels it's fine. That's her fashion. The people around her are worried about her. Are like, why are you going through this? Why are you putting through yourself all this? And it goes on and goes on. She transforms. She becomes this fashionista, continues working in, builds this lingo. At that same time, she gets to learn a lot about Miranda Presley, like her failing marriages. She gets to learn that, oh, Miranda's human. As much as she has this facade of being unbothered by anything, there's stuff that actually gets to her. And the movie goes on. So looking at it through the lens of an 18-year-old, I really felt I was more touched by the perspective of Andy. But then I rewatched it. Well, I got memories of the movie, and I was like, let me rewatch it because now I wanted to see it from the perspective of Miranda, which is the boss. And what has changed between then? I'm now 25 years old and I'm part of the workforce, and I do have authoritative leaders, authority that guides me at work. So I was like, since I've been now exposed to having quote unquote, I hate saying this word, my former CEO doesn't like the the word. I think that's why I also do not like it. I also have bosses. Let me try to re-watch it and kind of see it from that type of lens in terms of a leadership standpoint. Like, leaders that inspire, or you want to be a tyrannical leader, or anything of that sort. And I kept going back to Andy, and I kept going back to Andy, and as much as I had wished this video to be centered around Miranda Presley, I go back to Andy. Now, what we know about Andy already is that she's a Yale graduate. She wants to make it big and writing like for a proper newspaper or proper something of that sort. But now she finds herself as an assistant and a second assistant for that matter. The girl on the opposite side, that's the first assistant to this woman. She basically cleans her codes, does her house runs, gets her Starbucks, everything and anything an assistant does. Sometimes she's tasked with booking flights in the middle of storms. So she's tasked with all of that. And as I said already, she walked into the company and she was not dressed like the fashionistas, costume, because anything. She has her friends. Her friends are like, your fashion's fine. His boyfriend is like, your fashion's fine. No need to worry, no need to worry. And throughout the movie, we can see that Andy had a set of values of what she wanted to achieve in life. Her journey in runway was her trying to get connections into the world of journalism, and she believed that she could make those connections. And having worked for me, Randa Presley would look good in a CV once he submits to like quote unquote real papers for work. But what we see is she grows in her role. She grows in her role in the sense that she's no longer the girl we saw, the quiet intellect we saw, and she kind of embraces and embodies this fashionista type of person. And there's a repeated line we keep finding every time we look at this, and it's a million girls would kill to be in your position. Every time Andy was kind of like questioning herself about whether she really wants to do this, everyone was be like, oh, honey, a million people would kill to be in your position. So now it's a position of honor, even though it wasn't her dream. It's a dream that's kind of like imposed on her. Like, you do not know how good you have it. You absolutely do not know how good you have it in Houston. And she grows to a point where now she becomes the number one. She kind of topples the first assistant. And there's a scene in the movie, right about the last scene, where Miranda's like, okay, you've toppled the person who was the first assistant. Now it's you. And she's like, am I going to have to play this game for the rest of my life? And Miranda says, if you want to do it, if you want to stay in, this is the game. I know it's painful. You just overthrew somebody who took you under a wing and showed you the ropes, but this is how it is. There's no loyalty here. You are loyal to yourself, and that's about it. And it's in that last scene where I digress. They were in a car when this happened. Now they walk out of the car, and Andy walks away from Miranda. So that we can see it's Andy walking away from this life. A lot has happened, and this is very summarized. Very summarized. Anyone who's watched the movie will be like, you probably just touched on the one thing about that. It's a very summarized. In essence, Andy lost herself whilst working for this publication under this woman. And we find her finding herself back. And we see her going to her, I mentioned her boyfriend. They broke up because she became the fashionista. The man did not recognize her anymore. Going back there, not to get back together, but in essence to be like, hey, what's up? Hi, how you doing? And we see her reconnecting with the goals she had at the very beginning of the movie. That's I find this to be a very powerful. The English is running away from me. Is it metaphor? I don't know if it's metaphor, but I find this scenario to be a very powerful one, especially around the issue of values and how far are we willing to withhold our values. How steadfast are we in our values, and how stubborn are we in our values? Here we have a girl who had a vague understanding of her values coming out of college, having studied this, and had believed that, okay, this would work towards my values. And somehow, somewhere, she gets knocked off her axis and starts to embrace values that were imposed on her because everybody around her was telling her, this is what you want. You do not know how good you have it. And she fell victim to it. But the more she learned, the more she realized, oh, I've made a bad decision. This is actually not who I am. And in fact, I'm going to walk away from all of this to go find who I really am. And it's something that happens to a lot of us. Well, I truly believe sometimes we take on the values that are imposed on us by who we find ourselves around. It's somewhat personal to me because I also may have went through that where now you're losing yourself in an essence. You're losing yourself. You're failing to recognize who you truly are. You find yourself doing stuff that you wouldn't do per se. If people were to ask her when she was at Yale, would you be comfortable doing all these odd jobs, blah 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 blah? And she'd probably be like, nah, I want to be in investigative journalism. I want to do work with impact. It happens to the best of us. I'm not going to go too deep about that, about my personal ones, but that's what I'm going to say. And I believe that in certain instances like this, where you have values that are challenged, and maybe you somewhat disconnect from those values, you disconnect from the values that make you who you are, you have two choices: to return back to the values or to completely get lost. You can completely get lost and assume the form that is being imposed on you, and now that becomes your new you. You forget about everything that you used to say. You forget about that child in you that yearned to experience certain things because no, you've been given this new set of values. This is what is demanded from you. This is who you ought to be. Yada, 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 yada. Or what I believe to be an even more beautiful thing is through losing yourself, you refine yourself. And I am going to digress for a moment. As a digress. Guys, I don't have the best English. Don't judge me. I'm going to go off topic a bit. And I'm just, it's my emotions, guys. It's me talking to myself. I find refine yourself very poetic because I just rewatched this movie and we just currently came out of Rosh Hashanah on our way to Yom Kippur, the high holidays, the holiest days in the Jewish calendar. And one of the central tenets, if I may use that, of this period of the high holidays is tshuva. And tshuva can be translated as repentance and can also be translated as return. The return to the self, return to the core of who you actually are and who Hashem has made you out to be. Return. And I believe once you have tasted the loss of something ever so dear to you, like your defining values, the moment you regain them in an even more powerful way. You even become more devout. You can even look at like religious, yes. Um People who are religious and maybe probably lost the religion and then refound the religion, came back, the prodigal sons and everything came back. I would argue this is based off zero research. My videos are no research. It's just me yapping, 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 yapping. I would argue they show somewhat of a higher degree of devotion on average that people have always been there. Because this is something that played a major role in their life, and they know what it's like to be without it. The havoc, the heartache that comes from not having this thing that they have always held ever so dearly close to their hearts. So that is that. That's why the moment Andy was able to refine herself, she had the audacity, the guts to just walk away from Miranda. And Miranda was tyrannical. As I said, when she looks at you, people feel like they collapse on herself. It's just like, I'm gonna walk away from this. And then go about choosing what she chooses. So as I said, anybody who loses themselves finds themselves with two choices. Either to return or to continue in the path that is being imposed on you by the other people. Because it it is imposed to some extent because people believe that's it. You start listening to outside noises about who we want to be. We are not too firm in our own beliefs. And the moment you start listening to outside noises, it opens up a whole lot of can of worms. You're gonna suffer pains you never thought you could suffer. Trust me, I know. And part of it is because we haven't truly, we have values, but we haven't really truly defined them or have really built them around a foundation where sometimes it takes having them tested for us to really fully acknowledge them. It's like your faith is best tested in hard times over good times. It's easy to be midoratza. It's easy to be holy when everything is going good, but it's when it's not going good where we can be like okay, that's that. So I have 2 minutes left. Damn. In conclusion, how do we then stick to who we really are and forget about the glitz and glam? How do we not listen to the external noises that are telling us where we should go and how we should go? Get that car. You need that car. You need that blah blah blah. Like Andy, you need to dress up in this fashionable way. You want this job. A million girls will kill for this job. You need to get that fancy house, get that fancy car, get those fancy clothes. How do we then ground ourselves to values that we can be proud of? And I must say, just because they are your values, they can also be flimsy. So, how do we actually build a value system worth living for? And we can proudly walk around with our chest out and be like, this is what I believe in. And I'm willing to die on this hill. How do we get this stubbornness? How would we not get distracted by the glitz and the glamour? This might be a totally unrelated topic, but stubbornness it's an important one. There's a popular rabbi on YouTube by the name of Ravi Tovia Singer, and he has a line when he says in which he says should I even say this? It might come off as controversial. But I like the poetry around it, which is about sticking to your belief systems, regardless of what. So I'm gonna say it anyway. Here's a line which says, Jesus could have came, built a new world with new moons and new suns, and we still not accept Jesus as the Messiah because he does not fulfill the messianic prophecies of the Old Testament. Now, that's not me saying he's right, he's wrong. I'm not trying to open up debate about religion or religiosity in any way, but it's a matter of being stubborn in your beliefs. Like, yes, I see all the glitz and the glam. I see all this. I see all the great stuff that's happening, but that's not what I'm called for. That's not what I want. I want this. Yeah. You can have that Paris Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week, all that. It's all nice and everything, but I still stick to my guns. I don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know how we do it, but for me, right now, I feel like I've grew in terms of belief in the way I want to go about life. I've grew slightly more stubborn in my take on the world, and part of it is because I've had my thinking tested and I've deserted my thinking for some time, and now I'm returning back to my thinking, which is quite poetic, as I said. I'm trying to return at a time where it's a season of repentance and return, the time of Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. And I'm always worried about people who make it this far in the video. Like, guys, get a life, guys. You cannot listen to Gefense for 22 minutes and watch it completion, guys. Get a life. I just be happy. I just be happy. Zero research, zero anything, zero credibility. Just spewing. This is an excuse for Gefense to talk to himself. And it's quite therapeutic for me. And there's a small narcissist in me that's just going to be like, you know what? Put it out there. Put it out there. Yeah, guys. But that's about it, dog. That's about it. I hope to start doing this more consistently, to be honest. I've actually missed this.